Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's your nighttime, right time DJ Music. As I always say, I got 15 minutes to rock this post, so let me get straight to it. I want to thank Anonymous, as you can see him right there on the screen, for bringing this video to my attention. He said, just speak on it. So here I go. I'm going to speak on this particular video. If you're looking in the left-hand corner right there, it says, Tyrant Alert. Oklahoma troopers beat elderly deaf man. This elderly deaf man just happens to be black. You will see after the beating that the police try to orchestrate a cover-up to where it was justified that where they beat this man. Now, we're going to get straight to the video. I got to warn you folks that this is going to be hard for some folks, especially in my case, if I'm a black man. And if my elderly father or my elderly grandfather was to go out and experience this, I don't know how I would react to this. And a lot of people say, well, you know, take it to court and all that. But that is still, just because you pay somebody some monetary amount of money, that doesn't erase what happened to them. That doesn't make that pain go away. You will see, if for all you folks that know what reticular hemorrhaging is, that this black man, they was choking this man so hard that his eyes were bloodshot red. And the only way you get that reticular hemorrhaging, folks, is from somebody choking you, damn near choking you out, or repeated blows up against your head and your eye socket. Now let's get to it. Again, thank you, Anonymous, as you wanted me to speak on it, so I'm going to speak on it.
Voiceless travel.
Hearing impaired on the thing. Like that.
Did you hear that? This is before they even got to the truck, folks. It says hearing impaired. You already knew that before you walked up to that van. It says hearing impaired. Listen a little bit later on.
My dad is one of my most favorite people on this earth because he is gentle and kind, and it's genuine.
My name is Pearl Pearson Jr.
Do you have a name sign?
Pearl. And I love jokes. I love making people laugh. Damage from all of the blows. I had been hit and I almost blacked out. My eyes were damaged. It was difficult for me to breathe. You know, I was trying to tell them to stop. I was choked up. I couldn't breathe. My head, I was dizzy because of the trauma that was happening. I curled over in the fetal position just trying to make it stop. Before that, I had gone to a deaf coffee event at Starbucks. And they closed at 10, and I left about 9:30. Said bye to everybody, and I left. And we were driving. And then there were some police lights behind me. I didn't know where we were going, so I pulled over, and the police pulled up behind me. I have a placard in my car that explains that I'm deaf and that I have communication needs, so I was getting ready to get that. I had my hands on the wheel, and the policeman came up with his gun drawn around the side of the car. And I rolled down the window, and the police started talking to me. And I pointed my ear to say, I'm deaf, just a second. And I was going to reach for that paper, that placard that I had that explains I'm deaf. And when I reached down, his fist came through the window. And then his other hand grabbed my wrist.
Get off the phone. Get off the phone. Who's resisting? Who's resisting?
When they pulled his arm like that, it dislocated his shoulder. So at that moment, before he even got out of the vehicle, his right arm is completely out of socket.
So they finally got the door open and got the seatbelt off and pulled me out onto the ground and then were beating me. And the police say that it was 7 minutes, but it really felt more like 10 or 15.
They at one point had him in a chokehold. We learned that he had a concussion. My dad believed that he would die and that he was going to die.
Give us your hands. Stand up. Give us your hands. Stop. Oh my God.
I was yelling, I'm deaf, and I was angry and I was upset, trying to make them understand. And I tried to talk and I tried to tell them, but they kept beating me, they kept hitting. And so I just had to go back into a fetal position. I was screaming.
You can't follow commands if you can't hear them. You can't put your arms behind your back when you've got one arm dislocated and hanging out and the muscles that are attached to it torn. It's not physically possible to do that.
Hey, you know why he was resisting you? Because he was trying to grab the car.
Oh, that's what it was.
That's what it was.
I knew it.
I think the reason why my man puts this heart here, if your blood pressure is not up by now, folks, to see and to hear what happened to this 64-year-old man, and to know that the police already knew before they pulled him out of that vehicle that he was hearing impaired, that he was deaf. You heard him earlier say there's a sign saying that the occupants or something like that, something that he says that said that he's deaf or impaired. I think that's what it means. Yeah, he's deaf. And then you hear then he said he said he was resisting, but he wasn't resisting. He was reaching for this placard to show you. And then one other policeman says, yeah, I knew it. Now, if that doesn't make your blood pressure boil right there, that's the fact that, listen, even with cameras and microphones, these policemen don't give a fuck. They don't care. Everybody want to say, well, not all policemen act that way, not all, but in the black community, folks, yes, they do. Yes, they do. You guys want to parade one or two around that roll through some town dropping off some turkeys, or that shoot some basketball with a couple black kids or whatever, and y'all think that's supposed to change the perception of how black people look at the police. Ask this 64-year-old man, Pearson, if his perception of the police will ever be the same again.
Let's make a jack.
Hey, make sure your report you put that there was nothing identifying him deaf whatsoever.
Right.
On the outside or inside.
Right.
That was in the side pocket. They never even, he never said about it.
Right.
You hear him laughing? Like it was funny. Like it was absolutely funny. Like this was commonplace for them folks. This is something that they do every day. You can tell that just in how they were so nonchalant about it, and how easy it was for them to try and cover for each other. He never said anything about it. The man couldn't speak. He's deaf. He uses sign language to communicate. He was yelling. Even throughout the course of all that, the scruffle that was going on, you still could hear him yelling. When he gets in the car, you could see him moaning, writhing in pain. Do you think that made the difference to the police? Right then and there is when they started making their cover up.
I wanted to just cry, but we had work to do, and I needed to hold it together. His eyes were swollen, and it was like blood. He would have...
That's the part I wanted you to see, folks. Remember the part I was talking about, the reticular hemorrhaging. Look at this
hold
again.
it together. His eyes were swollen, and it was...
Look at that, folks. That's what the policeman did to a 64-year-old deaf black man. Just take a look at that. Imagine, that's his daughter. Imagine how she feels now. Imagine the trauma that these two people, one totally unrelated to the incident at all, views the police now. Look at that. Look at that man's eyes.
Like blood. He would have been looking at the possibility of losing his eyesight. You know, he already, doesn't have his access to hearing things, and to lose his eyesight too would be just, I don't even know how to say it. So, my dad, like I said, is the nicest, most fun, gentle guy, and I didn't understand how this could be done to him. This thing has happened to other deaf individuals in other states, and there have been others that have ultimately died.
Police officer shot and killed a deaf man in Oklahoma City. 35-year-old Magdiel Sanchez
was shot and killed in his front yard.
And they were at his home investigating a hit-and-run crash involving his father.
Neighbors say besides being hearing impaired, he was also mentally impaired.
We won't be able to understand police violence in this day and age if we don't understand the connections that exist between race and disability-based discriminations.
I'm glad that she said that, because there it is, folks. On several occasions, I hate to tell you people to go do your research on this, but you really need to. Go look at the amount of African American, Latino American people with disabilities that have been shot and killed by the police just because of the way they responded. If you are a deaf person, you communicate with your hands. This video goes on a little further, and I'll post a link down there so you can look at the entire thing. But it shows that this Latino man walking away from the police, and they still end up shooting him 5 times. Not only so much to add insult to injury, folks, they were looking for his father, who was involved in a hit-and-run accident. So after they exonerated the police, said that they did his job, they also charged the father with felony hit-and-run and a few other charges, not driving with a driver's license and a few other things. So I say all this to say, it's funny. We just had an incident here of a police officer's son killing another police officer. The son was white and the police officer was black. Where's Blue Lives Matter? Where are you screaming now? Why aren't you in protest now? It just goes to show you, folks. That's why we always say, yep, black lives do matter, because it makes no difference to the white policemen what they do to us. It's been that way since the beginning of time. It hadn't changed from 1778 to 2019. Police still kill and harass us with impunity. Bottom line. I'm out of here.